Hope everybody's having a good day. We're glad to see so many faces for Ethics Week 2018. This is day 2, and I'm very excited to introduce our guests today, two homegrown community leaders. And I think for those of you who are Notre Dame students, you'll have a chance to learn about the area and maybe ways that you hadn't before. I encourage you, as you think about the week ahead, to join us for the remaining 2 lectures for Ethics Week. So tomorrow, the 14th, we have Alex Liggins and Alex Sedinaj from the South Bend Code School, and Ryan Kubicki from Gibson, who I believe is an alum of the university. And then on Thursday, our topic is local business. So we have representatives from Bendix Coffee and South Bend Woodworks here. Today, though, we do have two wonderful community leaders, and if you've been involved in things out and about in South Bend, you have had the opportunity probably to cross paths with these two guests. We have Regina Emberton and we have Jeff Ray here with us today. Regina is the president and CEO of the South Bend Elkhart Regional Partnership, which is a collaboration of economic development partners from the kind of northern Indiana and southwest Michigan areas. The organization serves as a single point of contact for regional communication and seeks to create economic opportunities for all partner members through collaborative promotion, marketing, and capacity building efforts. The partnership also serves as the administrator for the Regional Development Authority, which consists of and leverages the vast experience and services of business, academic, philanthropic, and government leaders working to transform the region by improving quality of life and spurring population growth. Prior to her tenure at the partnership, she was a vice president at CBRE, Bradley, C.B. Richard Ellis. Is that still correct? Okay, CBRE.
It changes every couple of years.
Okay, yeah, it does. Which is one of the premier commercial real estate companies nationally, globally. She serves on the board of Boys and Girls Club here in town and other philanthropic efforts as well. So we're very grateful to have Regina with us. Jeff Ray is the current president and CEO of the South Bend Regional Chamber of Commerce. He represents the interest in this role of more than 1,000 member businesses who employ more than 60,000 people in our region. Under his leadership, the Chamber has been recognized as the Indiana Chamber of the Year, was a runner-up for the National Chamber of the Year, and has achieved 5-star accreditation from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is an honor achieved by only 100 of the 7,000 chambers of commerce in the country. He is the host of WNIT Television's Economic Outlook show, so you may have seen him on TV. He's a columnist in our local South Bend Tribune. Prior to his tenure at the Chamber, Jeff Ray was the mayor of the city of Mishawaka for 6.5 years and guided the city to record economic growth. Also from South Bend, coming from a family of small business owners. So we're very grateful for your time with us today. It sounds like it will be a conversational kind of style and some opportunities for interaction. So welcome, Regina and Jeff.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Can you guys hear us okay? Okay, great. No? Kind of?
Great. That just needs to go on.
Oh, it was just upside down. Thank you.
Yep, we're good.
Good stuff. Okay, great. Yeah, Jeff and I work really closely together on a daily basis in the work that we're doing, and we thought it would be, rather than each of us take 20 minutes to tell you what we do and talk about ourselves, that we would just sort of interact and have a conversation, but we would love for you to be part of that conversation as well. We'll definitely leave time at the end for Q&A, but if you have something that spurs your interest or you have a question about, please just chime in, and we'd love to address it. Jessica did a great job of talking about our backgrounds, but I guess, Jeff, anything she missed or anything you want to talk about as far as your background, kind of where you came from?
Yeah, just touch on very high level. So my family owned a drugstore in town for 50 plus years, and so my life, I dreamed of being the next generation entrepreneur to take over the family business, and it got to be challenging at a time when the big chain drugstores were sort of taking over, and so that path didn't afford itself to me. I bypassed pharmacy school and decided to go a different route. Worked in the pharmacy industry for some time though before I went to work for public sector, and at a very young man took a job in the public sector, partly because I needed a job, I guess, for one, but also because I felt that was maybe a ladder for quick advancement. So one interesting thing about government sometimes is they can afford people on the front end of their career, on the back end of the career, but not in the middle sometimes. So I thought, well, here's a chance for me to sort of get involved at the very ground level on local government. I served as a city planner, as an economic development director, ultimately as mayor, and so got a chance to really run the whole gamut. And we'll touch a little bit on that. But this is my hometown, and so it was, so it also gave me a chance to sort of be back here and be in the community that I grew up in and I loved, and a chance to make some impact on it. And I'd like to think over the course of the years that I had a chance to do that as well. Regina, you're also from here. Talk a little bit about just being from here, and a little bit more about your background as well too.
Right, I was born and raised in Mishawaka, a small, obviously one of the smaller communities within our region, but a great opportunity, and we have a long family history as well. It was interesting. I went to IU down in Bloomington for a while, came back, got my master's degree at IU South Bend, started my family very young, so I was a working mom, and had some great opportunities through this community through internships, and ended up just staying. So I was the kid who in high school, I was never going to live in South Bend, Indiana. I mean, that was just not even an option. I was moving probably to California or something, and that was it. But, life takes its turns, and I'm so glad that it has. It's been a perfect fit for me. I had an internship with a commercial real estate company, and while it was globally, a global company, we were an affiliate, so it had local family ownership, and it was a nice balance. And I ended up working there for almost 15 years before I transitioned into this interesting economic development role. My family also has long roots in the area as well. We were talking about Germany before. This Kam and Schellinger brewery that was founded in Mishawaka at the 100 Center. That was the Gerstbauer family, and then the Kam and Schellingers, and so we had that was part of our family that developed that, and then also had a fruit market on the west side of South Bend on my dad's side. So I think investing in the community has always been something that's driven our families, and I think that helps you get engaged and want to make a difference as well, as opposed to leaving and taking either your talents or your money or whatever you had to offer to another community. We can put it right back here.
So Regina, maybe we'll talk about that for a quick second, because I think I lived somewhere else. I didn't. I was like Regina, and I didn't want to live here, and I kind of dreamed a little bit of bright lights, big city. I lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. Two of the progressive, kind of hip, cool spots. A lot of job opportunities, a lot of things going on down there. It was kind of interesting to sort of balance that, and as part of our job today is to recruit young people here. And that's really an interesting thing, because the best advice I often gave them, I thought, was to go live somewhere else. And then as they settled into careers or different things, then to think about where you wanted to raise a family and where you could afford to live and some of those things. And so that really sort of led me back. Family was here, but job opportunities were here. And after living in the big city for a couple of years, I decided one, I couldn't afford it, and two, that things like the commute and some of those things were just such that I was looking for something else, and I also think that being somewhere else gave me a greater appreciation for what this area had to offer, and so it was a big part of the decision maybe to come back.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Well, you were pretty young when you ran for mayor, actually. Can you talk a little? You were hailed as the boy wonder, and you're going to change everything. It was in the paper. I saw it. I have the article. And but the youngest mayor in Indiana at that time. And right now in politics, we hear so much about federal campaign finance and how ethics is approached at a state and a national level. Talk a little bit about why you decided to why you ran for mayor, and what kind of things you encountered during the campaign as you were a young man setting out to make a big difference in your hometown.
Yeah, I sort of laugh at the boy wonder thing, because any of you know the current mayor in South Bend, way more talented and smart than me. I was sort of lucky I came along when I did because he sort of put the rest of us to shame. But as a young guy, I was working in the public sector, and my predecessor had made the decision to retire, and it sort of my initial want was a little more selfish, right? So I wasn't really excited about working for anybody else. Mayors are kind of interesting in terms of what you think of them sometimes. So some people think it's kissing babies and cutting ribbons and groundbreaking shovels and stuff like that. Well, and you see on the chart there, it's a little bit different. It's in Indiana, it's a strong mayor form of government. You're the CEO of one of the largest corporations in town. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking, I'm not real excited about some of these people who are thinking about doing it. I might as well get in. And I made the decision to run, never wanted to be in politics, and ran for office, and was pretty successful in my first election. But I was pretty young and naive at the time. I was in my early 30s, and when they started, they said, boy, you got to raise a lot of money. I got to raise $200,000, for the local campaign in Little Mishawaka, Indiana. Really? So think about Congress. So the congressional district here in the South Bend area, you have to raise about $2 million for a campaign, and so it's really interesting because I'm like, I don't have any of my own money, and so now I got to go ask for folks, and so would you give me some money? Would you give me some money? And would you give me some money? And naive me thought that people were willing to give money because they believed in my vision, right? They understood my leadership qualities, the things that I brought to the table. What I quickly came to understand was that sometimes people with campaign contributions had ulterior motives. Imagine that. And so certainly people that did business with the city had a strong desire to share dollars with me in hopes that in exchange they would continue to do business with the city. Potential employees, current employees who were thinking about it. It was really quite the eye-opener for me, and I had made no promises. I guess along the way I get elected. I pretty soon I have a long line of people waiting outside the door wanting to cash in on their favor, right? So remember all those yard signs I pounded for you during the election? I sure would like my wife to have this position, or I'd like my son to have that position, or whatever. And it's interesting. Two of my very hardest working, my best campaign volunteers had asked me for something at the end, and I didn't give it to them, and never spoke to me again. And it was just a really sort of harsh reality in terms of, kind of approaching this where I thought I approached it the right way. I was sort of doing everything that I thought was very honest, and I was concerned with hiring the best people, right? And one of them, for example, wanted to be the police chief. And so think for a second about how you'd like for me to pick my police chief. You want it to be the guy that pounded the most yard signs in the election? Probably need more qualifications than that. Do you want it to be the guy that wrote the biggest check in the election? Probably not. You probably want the most qualified, most competent person to do that. And it became a really interesting reality for me on the mayor side because I take like 61% of the vote. I'm sort of everybody's pretty excited about this. They're already should he run for Congress next and governor and president and all that, kind of like they do now with Mayor Pete. And then reality sets in because I start running this the way I think it needs to be run, and I try to set up like a really honest operation, and I start hiring people that are qualified. I start making decisions that aren't necessarily popular, but I think are right. And before I know it, I got a lot of people in line working against me the next time around. So it's interesting. I go from taking 61% in the first election to 50.1 in that second election. A clear mandate from the people that they wanted me to continue to serve. So.
But you were elected twice, and so what's the population of Mishawaka? 50,000, something like that. So 50,000 people, or 61% of those, and then 50 believed in you and elected you to the mayor. And you stand there and you're getting sworn in, and automatically you're honorable, right? So
still honorable, by the way.
Yeah, so forever. But there's this huge public trust issue with elected officials, and we really believe that they're going to do the right thing on behalf of us when we elect them. I think oftentimes that's the case. We have very high quality elected officials that do the right thing. But on the flip side of that, maybe when you did the right thing, tell us about some of the challenges, or you talked a little bit about the campaign side. When you were in office, what were some of the ethical challenges that you faced during that time?
Since we just came off it, I'll mention one. So Super Bowl. Anybody football fans? So I got I don't. I think it's okay to probably call them out here. Motorola. So Motorola is like the official technology partner of the NFL, and so I'm contemplating buying a new system for my police department. I got to have a 911 system, radios in all my cars, and also my street department, ambulances, fire trucks, all that kind of stuff. So Motorola has got a all expense paid trip to for me to the Super Bowl. I'm in the VIP box. I'm, tickets to everything I need down there. And guess what? The Bears and the Colts are playing in this. So if you live here, you grow up here, those are our two teams, right? So those are the two closest teams. So that's who we would root for. So what a cool opportunity for me to go to my first ever Super Bowl. I'm making like 40 grand a year as the mayor, managing this $100 million budget. When am I going to be able to afford to go myself and such? But I decided not to go to the Super Bowl, by the way. But it's interesting because it was sort of one of those dilemmas that you go through early on. And we had decided very early on in our administration that we had to approach things like it was going to appear on the front page of the newspaper, right? So, and not that you want the newspaper to be your filter, because they'll really write about anything, these days. But we start thinking about. Wait, Motorola is the only guy in the business. Nobody else sells these communication systems, so it'd be really easy for me to sort of do this and justify it. But it's just not the right thing either. I don't want to sort of establish some precedent here. And it's really funny because I'm getting offers like this along the way. And again, I'm in little Mishawaka, Indiana, not in big cities. So I think of, kind of the challenges that other elected officials have. I joke about the honorable piece because all my mail says the Honorable Jeff Ray, and not as much anymore. It used to be all the time and I still like to think that I'm honorable, but it does become an interesting challenge and in an environment where you have to have money to run a campaign, so it's really interesting that to sort of face those battles along the way and then try to do what's right. And I don't mean to single him out. But I had a friend who served as mayor, and he was a long-serving mayor, and we were having a conversation one day, and he says, I can't wait till my last term, because I'll be able to do what I think is right. And it was like, man, it crushed me, because it was sort of, because I do think elected officials, unfortunately, sometimes think about getting reelected first, and then the other stuff afterwards. And so what he had just told me was, I can't do all the stuff that I think I need to do as mayor, because it might hurt me in the ballot box or whatever. And so you're kind of facing those ethical or those moral dilemmas there a little bit. I like this job. I want to be the mayor for a long time. I need a job. I got a house payment and car payment like everybody else has got to pay. But I also want to do the right stuff too. So it's kind of interesting there too. Let's maybe turn back to you. I feel like I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry. So talk a little. So you've been in the real estate industry then for a long time, and I think you talked about 15 years or so there. So talk a little bit about sort of that experience. So you're a young lady as you first get involved in this. You're in a world or an industry that's pretty male dominated. Talk a little bit about just sort of some of your challenges as you're first in that industry.
Sure. This is my favorite slide. There it is. So
Yeah.
this is, commercial real estate is an extremely male-dominated industry. And like Jeff said, I was in my young 20s, and I started off as an intern over 14 years, worked my way up to vice president of all of the brokerage services. So it was a great career. And the reason that I loved it so much, and probably one of the reasons I got into it, was because it's commission-based. So if you work hard, you can make money. And it doesn't matter what you look like, or it doesn't matter necessarily who you know. It's how smart you are, how hard you work, and you kind of work through that. And so I liked that meritocracy of it. But I quickly learned that being a female in that industry was different than being a male. So it's a meritocracy, but as long as you're sitting at the same table and have the same opportunities as the other folks. And so that was really, really interesting and an eye-opener for me. I have 2 daughters now, and so it's something we talk about all the time. And my oldest daughter graduates from college in May, and I'm telling her, you should get into commercial real estate. And she graduated with a degree in nonprofit management. So we'll see what path she ends up taking. But on the top, that's me, and that's a host of men. We're all SIOR brokers. And so, I made sure that I went out and achieved the certification, the designation that the big guys had. These are the experts. And then I realized, oh, well, they're all going out to do trap and skeet shooting. I've never shot a gun. I mean, that's just, like, I don't know, I just never had that experience. But I thought, well, I'm the only one that's prohibiting myself from going and participating in these activities with the rest of them making the connections. And so now every year we go up and we do a trap and skeet. We host this event up in Southwest Michigan. It's great. We bring people from Chicago and Indy and Detroit. And now, this is the picture, I think, from 2014. There are actually 3 or 4 women in the photo from last year. So it is getting better. But then you shift to economic development, and it's very similar. And I'm not sure why that is, that those particular industries are. But I feel oftentimes like the token female. So we're having a groundbreaking, and I think I'm making a difference, and I'm working hard, and I'm there because of what I do. But so many times it's often a group of white males that are standing around a podium or in a ribbon cutting picture. And so that's been just a bit of an ethical, I wouldn't say it's a dilemma for anyone else, but we're all facing that challenge, is how to be inclusive and how to make sure that we're representing what our communities look like when we're advancing our economies and when we're putting amenities in place that are really to serve the whole community, not just one set of them. So I think that's kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So now you've transitioned. So you're still in sales, right? So you were selling real estate. Now you're kind of selling the region, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's move into just sort of talking a little bit more about the region. Kind of what makes you. What's our sales pitch is, and we both will probably talk a little bit about that. But we're trying to differentiate ourselves from 8,000 other communities that all want you to come live there, want you to start your business there and stuff. Talk a little bit about just sort of your role now and selling the area and what that pitch is like.
Yeah, I don't have all the numbers memorized, but when you think about the 3,400 counties or MSAs across the country, and we think, what makes us different? Wow, you know what? We're only 30 minutes from Lake Michigan. That makes us really different. But guess how many other communities are 30 minutes from a massive body of water like that? And then you start to think about, well, we're only 90 minutes away from one of the largest economic engines in the world, Chicago. We can get on a train and get to Chicago. We're super connected, right? Well, guess how many other cities are 90 minutes from Chicago? Starts narrowing down our uniqueness factor. Guess what? We have a world-class research university in the University of Notre Dame that's in our community. That's a huge, huge factor that we think makes us unique. Guess what? There are a lot of other cities and communities that have an impressive research university or a college factor that plays into that. So, we have to think about what really makes the South Bend Elkhart region unique. And when we talk about that, it's not just one city or county. There's 500,000 people that live in the 7 counties just right around this area, and 1 million if you're looking at about an hour's drive. And so those are the people that we work together, we shop together, we cross county lines and city lines for when we play and recreate. So that's kind of what we're thinking. And we've used this terminology, smart connected communities, and you'll hear us talk about that a lot. But basically, you can see up on the region here, we don't have one big city in our region that makes us unique. St. Joe County and Elkhart County, we're about the same size. We've got Goshen and Mishawaka and Benton Harbor, St. Joe. We've got a lot of cities and communities that are helping drive our economic engines forward and also creating really vibrant urban downtowns and areas for people to live. So that's a key one. The population also, when you amass that all together, that helps make us unique. So if we were in a more rural setting, you don't have as many people that are together. You're not going to have as many employers coming. You're not going to have the talent being attracted. So that's really unique. I think this one's huge. The smart part, 40,000 students are engaged in the colleges and universities right here in the region. So you think about Notre Dame, and that's a huge component of it, but there's IU South Bend and Bethel College and Grace College and all of these unique colleges and universities that are bringing people here. So we have this incredibly talented population of young people who are learning here, and then what do they do when they graduate? So that's kind of an interesting thing that we're looking at. And then, of course, we have a high level of performing arts and sports when we look at the communities and the opportunities that are available for residents here. So that's what I think about when we talk about what makes the region unique. That's in a general sense. Of course, when we're out selling to recruit a metalworking technologies company to the area, we're talking about the innovation and entrepreneurship. We're talking about the high level of certified talent that we have here, the supplier network, it's huge. So it kind of depends what aspect you're looking at the community from.
Yeah, it's interesting on the college piece in particular. So Jim Clifton, the former chairman of Gallup, in his book, The Coming Jobs War, talked about universities being the incubators for innovation and new development in the future. And it is an advantage that we have that other communities don't. And it is interesting as we travel around and see and visit with our peers in other communities. They're all selling the same stuff, right? They're all, near the interstate, close to the big city, have direct flights to a couple, key communities. But the universities and the things the universities are doing is really critical. Notre Dame's been a really critical partner in that, and in recent years has really recognized the role they play. They know it's hard to attract you as students to this area or the best faculty or something if there's not a vibrant community around it. And so it's been a neat partnership, I think, between the university and the community in terms of working toward, kind of building on this vibrancy and such.
So that's interesting, and it leads me to think about the Regional Cities Initiative, which we've heard a lot about on the news. I guess talk a little bit, Jeff, about why that is. Why do we need to focus on making our community better so that that the staff will come work at Notre Dame and so that the students will come here and across the region? So Indiana generally is an exporter of talent. So the out-migration numbers have everybody move into the southeast or southwest or to the big cities, somewhere. And the state as a whole recognized that we needed to do something to change that, right? So if all our young people move away from Indiana, then long term we won't be able to sustain ourselves. And so the state says we gotta change this. And the other thing they said was that when people think of Indiana, they really know Indianapolis, maybe. Probably not much beyond that, right? We're sort of one of the flyover states, and don't Indiana and Iowa and Illinois kind of all run together, and you're not sure where one starts and one stops. And so the state made a decision that we needed to sort of study that magic formula from other communities. What is it that helps make Austin cool? And I like to, share, not for, if you don't promise not to let it leave this room, but so Austin and South Bend were the same size a few years ago. I don't know if you've been to Austin recently, but it's a little bit bigger than we are now. But it had now it doesn't have snow and some of those kind of things. We could opine about why that is. But so the state wanted to understand that, so they went to Nashville, where Nashville's adding, I don't know, 150 people a day, or Charleston, where they're adding 125 people a day. We're adding about 17 people a year, I think, or something. Something pretty low compared to that. And so we wanted to study that. We went to Denver and went to Boise and some of those progressive communities. And what we recognized there was a quality of place in those communities that was making people want to move. More and more young people were moving to communities because of the amenities that communities had, and less about the jobs. Now, at the end of the day, you need it. Mom and dad think you need a job. They're not going to support you forever, right? But finding that quality community first. And so the state says we need to attach some money to this and put a program together to make that investment. We also need to raise the profile of some other communities. We want people to know more than just Indianapolis. We want them to know Fort Wayne or South Bend or some of those others. And so they launched the Regional Cities Initiative, and it was a competitive process a couple years ago, and they said, let's let regions compete for these dollars. And so Regina has had the joy of being the captain of our local team. But Regina, walk back in time a little bit for us, though, because I'd say a couple years ago, I'm not sure people thought that, one, we could get our act together. We don't act very regionally here. We're all, sort of individually, all those communities. But walk through a little bit of that process and kind of the coming together that sort of helped turn the tide here for our area. I guess the key of it in my mind was that communication and collaboration, and I think whatever industries or organizations that you end up working in, it's probably going to be very similar that to achieve success, you have to work together. I mean, that's just the way that our world is now. And it's really hard sometimes for elected officials because they're elected by the people within a particular border and they have to serve them. But the world is more and more regional. So we're not only working together as counties that are joined, we work together with our state and with the Midwest and with our country. So there are a variety of ways that that's important. But looking back to 2014, the state of Indiana, they said we've got about a little under $100 million we're going to give to some communities to build quality of place projects. These are things like we had the opportunity to determine what they would be, but the kind of housing that young people want to live in or retirees want to live in, or maybe it's an aquatic center or revitalizing an old theater or trails along your downtown river walk, things like that. And they were going around the state and talking to regions, but they weren't going to come to South Bend, Indiana, or anywhere in north central Indiana. I mean, we weren't even on the radar because historically we were just, everybody was kind of doing their own thing. The business community was over here trying to grow their economy, and you had the public sector over here doing their thing. The academic sector wasn't really engaged, I would say, until the most recent strategic plan at Notre Dame, where it really was made a driving factor to engage in the vibrancy of the community. That changed, but we were just very fractured. But we ended up getting the state folks to come up here and talk to our region about this opportunity. And we had over 200 people show up for this meeting. So there was some interest. Now, granted, it's about money, part of it in the beginning, and they want to know, oh, well, how can we get a part of this money? And I'm a developer, and I want to build a mixed-use housing concept on the river in Elkhart, so I'm going to go to this meeting because maybe there's something in it for me. But what was interesting is that what happened was that they realized, I can still remember, we were in one of the meetings and someone said, well, if it wasn't for the $42 million and if we weren't going to win the $42 million, is it worth it? Like, this is hard work, talking to each other about what's going on. It slows things down sometime, right? You just want to execute something and get it done. But what we found was that the process was as important as the end result. So we were successful. We did bring back $42 million, and that's now being implemented into a set of 26 projects across the region. So we're building natatoriums, and we're building theaters, as I mentioned, mixed-use housing, downtown grocery, trails and connections, but it's only a piece of it. So every dollar that we put into that has to be matched. We can only put 20% into any project. The private sector has to put at least 60%, and then the local public another 20%. So it's a way to leverage investment in the community. But these pictures just show, we had meeting after meeting after meeting to communicate and tell people about the opportunity to find out what were the quality of life gaps in the area and how could we fill those, what kind of projects would they be. And so it's been very successful. We had to form a regional development authority, which is it's almost like forming your own city, but it's a municipal corporation or public corporation or entity with 5 board members. John Affleck Graves, the VP of Business Administration here at Notre Dame, was the inaugural chair of that committee. So just to show you how engaged the university has become in this. But we were very intentional to make sure that there was also representative from the private sector and from economic development, all of these different areas that were really engaged in that. So that was a little bit about the process, and now we're more on the execution phase of the Regional Cities Initiative, because it was just one thing. So we have a lot more that we're working on and that we need to do, but that's the one that's probably been in the news the most, I think, and we've heard about the most.
So some $700 million of new investment, so pretty significant. And this is this is a long process. We're building communities and sustaining communities is kind of a fun thing to be involved in, but it's not easy, and it takes a lot of work, and it happens over a long period of time. And we sort of hit a low probably in the maybe 2008 or 9 as the economy is dropping, and as Newsweek puts us on the top 10 dying cities in the country list, and those,
Elkhart had what, over 20% unemployment.
Yeah. President Obama's here twice, to sort of highlight, kind of the bottom tier of the economy, and they went from 20 plus to 2% unemployment. And so President Obama comes back to sort of celebrate the amazing economic recovery that happens. Right. Wages are lagging behind the rest of the country too. When we think about, we're earning about 82% of what people earn in the rest of the country. We got to drive that wage up. We mentioned the outmigration of young people. Kind of just generally population growth. It's interesting. We've had some population growth in recent years, primarily related to more people being born than dying. And we're not sure that's the best strategy. I mean, we love, sort of new babies, coming to town, but we know we also, that can't be our only strategy, especially if they all leave when they get to be young or when they get to be old enough to leave and stuff. So kind of interesting to sort of pull people together and maybe to build trust too, so think about a little bit of a bunch of people who are sort of used to doing things their own way and trying to get them to come together and put down their defenses and sort of work with a team. Not an easy task. Somehow Regina's managed to sort of keep them all around the table.
It's like
sort of
collecting
working.
marbles or
Yes.
herding cats or something.
Yes,
it feels like
yeah.
a lot of the time. But there's a quote that both Jeff and I refer to a lot, and we like it. It's that progress moves at the speed of trust. And so I think, that's something I think about that almost daily, if not daily, weekly, because we can't move forward if we don't trust each other. So much of it is about building relationships, going back to your reputation, which oftentimes precedes you. And if you don't have a ethical reputation, or you're not always doing the right thing, or people are thinking that you might not be, because perception is reality. If they think you're going to do something unethical, that's as bad as probably you doing it, and in their eyes. So we think about that a lot. It's just building that trust, and the projects that we put together for the Regional Cities Initiative all fell within the Smart Connected Communities realm. And so when we talked about a little bit about the connected, but we think it's so important for that connectivity to Chicago. I kind of joked about it. A lot of communities are close to Chicago, but not that many of them have a train that's going to be about a 90-minute trip within a couple of years. That's fairly inexpensive, and then an Amtrak option as well, or a 90-minute drive. So we do think that's really important, and that was one of the projects that we're focused on. I know it's a priority of Mayor Buttigieg and the administration in South Bend this year as well. So that's really exciting. We just added 2 new direct flights from the airport to Dallas and Charlotte. So now you can fly to 12 cities across the U.S. nonstop and soon international, since we have that status. So those are the kind of things the projects that we talked about in Connected. And then the community side, again, in downtown Elkhart, they're building a $65 million, we invested $9 million into it, natatorium, but it's a community center as well, right in the downtown as part of the Riverwalk and everything that's going around there. And then more housing, more trails and things like that. So I just wanted to kind of tie it back to, it took this process of engagement that was really more important than the end product, because now we have 26 projects, but there's so much more that's happening because of the relationships that were built over the last 2 years.
And it's pretty neat. We've had a chance to be in the middle of some of those. During my time in the city, I got a chance to be that way. If you've been to Mishawaka and walked the Mishawaka River Walk, for example, was sort of my project as the city planner and economic development director many years ago. And really fun for me as a young man to sort of look back and understand how we've been able to influence what's going on in communities, and you'll have that chance. I think that like I had chances to work in big cities at much bigger companies and such, or advance in different companies that I worked for, but that chance to sort of make a difference here, I think, has been a really a fun piece, and it's interesting because the invitation is sort of waiting for folks, and the mayor in South Bend would tell you that he's a guy that just sort of stepped up and grabbed the reins and is going kind of full speed ahead with things, and so the chance to sort of influence this town, and years later for us to be able to look back and think that, gosh, since we've been doing this now the last 8 or 9 years, there's a really significant amount of new investment. The wages are growing, population is growing, new investment is happening there, and such. And we've had a chance to be a part of that. I've been lucky because I've been able to sort of play key roles in that. But I also think that some of that is because of who I am. So I mentioned my great grandfather and dad all owned a drugstore in town, and the first day I showed up on the scene, sight unseen, nobody knew me, but knew them, and knew the kind of ethical businessmen that they were, knew their reputation in the community, knew how they took care of folks. And I was sort of given the benefit of the doubt coming out of the gate because of sort of my family history or family ties, and then along the way been given the benefit of the doubt as well too, as people got to know me and what I was involved in. But Regina touched on just kind of that trust and how important trust plays in this, and then that reputation, folks, as well too. I'd like to think that I have a favorable reputation, here in the community, but it takes a lot of work to sort of keep that up, and it only takes sort of one bad step or one case where I'd cause people not to trust me that would sort of undermine my credibility or my ability to get people back around the table. So I can't emphasize how much that key plays in it. So.
Yeah, and I think, we'll open it up for Q&A pretty soon, but one thing I want to make sure to put out there, especially to the students that are in the room, is it's really easy to engage in a community like this. It's small enough that you can get engaged and you can make a difference, but it's big enough that it actually matters. And that's some of the exciting things that we've seen recently. I mean, there were a team of interns from all different colleges, including Notre Dame, that worked on Bowman Creek. They just won this huge award from the state because of this collaborative effort, and they just got engaged, and they're making a huge difference in that particular area. So if there's something that you're passionate about, there's an opportunity here for you to get engaged. If you love nonprofits and kids, the Boys and Girls Club has a great partnership with Notre Dame where there's a volunteer program back and forth. Or if you, I could probably name off, several of them, but students from Notre Dame that have stayed here and that I can tell are just making a huge difference. I mean, we wouldn't have, there's breweries that have opened that we wouldn't have if there weren't students. You'll hear from the South Bend Code School, and Alex Liggins graduated from here. We wouldn't have that. We wouldn't have the talent that you guys bring to our community, and it makes it better, and that's what's exciting. And I look back, so I've been in the professional world for 20 years now, and back then, there weren't other people. Everybody was from here. That's just what it was. But now, when you're out and about, if you look at the employees of a business and you kind of ask where you're from, oh, you're from Iowa and you're from California, and I know First Source is just recruiting a couple people, one from Dallas, one from Chicago. They're coming here, and it's a really exciting point to be. So I would just suggest, keep an open mind to considering there's some great innovative entrepreneurial opportunities in the region, whether it's short-term or long-term. We'd love to have you guys make a difference here as well.
I do think too that from a job standpoint too, as you're considering that we're as encouraged by that as well. Those future job opportunities there. So we're working with a company now on a driverless truck testing facility in town. So if you're an engineer designing driverless vehicles, you can do that here. The internet lives here in the data centers that are here. If you're doing data analytics, if you're doing IT, if you're the number of job opportunities certainly have changed. So we were historically a blue collar town where people didn't have to go to college. They worked in the local factory for 50 years. They retired, and now we're really more knowledge based economy, less blue collar. But our hope is that we have those job opportunities for you as well too, as you're thinking about that area. We don't mind if you go somewhere else for a couple years. Go back home, live for a couple years, go live in a big city. But think about that, and we've been encouraged by the number of graduates in recent years who love that connection to the university and want to be back either close to it or near it, and to be able to take advantage of it. So one of the things my wife and I love is our ability to take advantage of art and music and culture and sports and all those things that are happening on campus, and that's been a big draw for the area. So.
Yeah, and we have lots more to talk about, so we could go on and on, but we would love to hear from you, whether it's a question or even a comment. It helps us know how to do our jobs better when we hear what you're thinking, as younger students and then professionals in your roles.
Anybody planning to live here when they get out of school? Good. That's normal though, so that's okay. You say that now.
So that's a question. To my mind, you give us lots and lots of reasons to either stay after graduation or move back. And you give us the close. If you're trying to close on somebody to persuade them to move back here, give us your top 3 or your top 5. Here's why you've got to move back to South Bend.
You're the salesman.
Well, we're working on recruiting someone right now, an N-Focus fellow. So he graduated from Notre Dame, not from the area, and he's considering moving to Chicago or he's considering staying here. And I can just tell you what I told him in that particular instance is that he and his girlfriend, they actually bought a house here. They could buy a house here, and when they eventually want to start a family, they got a convenient place to live, low cost of living and things like that. And he's got some great job opportunities. So not only with what we're doing, but he would be coming in as right out of college, and he'd be working with really this impressive group of entrepreneurs and business owners that are wanting to make a difference and expand that in the region. So it's really talking about he can stay here, he can still be connected to the amenities of Chicago and the big city quite easily, but it's very affordable, and he can make a big difference here. Like bringing those talents to our region, again, it just goes back to what I was talking about before, is that he would make a huge impact on this whole region, and be, I guess you could call it like a big fish in a small pond, as opposed to the other way around.
You know, it's anybody know the number one city in the United States right now for young people, according to Forbes magazine? I'd venture to say, unless you're from there, you probably won't guess this. Any ideas? Number one city in the U.S.? Des Moines, Iowa. Anybody guess that? No. So
I was going to guess Milwaukee.
But I only throw that out there. So Forbes has them on the list the last couple of years. In Des Moines, in their sales pitch, they do a really nice job. It's an I state, right? It's a flyover state. It looks just like Indiana. They got corn everywhere, and it snows and it's cold, and they don't have mountains or beaches or some of those kind of things. But they sort of, and our mayor sort of shares that all the time too. It's sort of the big enough to have the things you want in a big city. It's it's Broadway, it's sports, it's theater, it's those kind of things. But small enough where you're really connected. And so we'd like to think if you wanted to meet any CEO in our region, you could be on their calendar in about 3 days, probably, just in terms of how closely connected we are with folks. In Chicago, you can't do that. And so Des Moines has built kind of a tech cluster. So financial services and insurance have meant a growing, kind of IT need. We kind of have the growing IT need, here as well. Cost is still a big factor for folks sometimes. Number 3 cost of living in the United States right now, behind 2 other cities in Indiana. So Indiana has done really well. Indiana is really one of the best business, tax, regulatory climates anywhere. So if you're thinking about being an entrepreneur or something, this area is ideal for that. But and I'm not suggesting we want to be Des Moines, but Des Moines gives us a great example of the kind of things that a community that's not on a coast, that doesn't have a beach, that doesn't have the bright lights big city can do to attract young people. And our hope is that we have the advantage of having a little university that I'm not sure I could name one in Des Moines right now, and such. So all those things are advantages for us. Yes.
I'm from East Lansing, Michigan, which is also a college town,
Yeah.
and then I'm very familiar with Ann Arbor, which is also a college town. And one of the things that people often look to in Michigan is the fact that East Lansing is really a lot smaller and doesn't have quite as much development, despite that it has a very large university there. And then Ann Arbor does have all of that development and things like that. And people often cite the fact that it has a large university plus a huge medical system, so a very large hospital and everything. And so I was wondering, it seems like from your presentation, South Bend is kind of figuring out what its big thing in addition to education will be. And I was wondering, is there any sort of pull toward one specific industry that will be sort of the big thing in addition to the world-class university? So would it be the data centers that you're talking about, or would it be perhaps a medical complex? Is there sort of one other big thing that would draw people here besides the education system?
Great question.
I think if we rely on our strengths and we know kind of what we're good at and don't try to be something that we're not, I think we have to look at innovation in manufacturing.
Okay.
Manufacturing is a strong industry here. I think it's over 40% of the employment in that, which is very high by national standards. But manufacturing today is not what it was in the past. It's innovative, it's clean, it's high tech, and so it's engineering based. And so that's really what we're working very hard on, is helping our existing manufacturers as well as bringing new ones here, but on the advanced technologies side of it. I could envision in the future some kind of advanced manufacturing lab or an institute that the universities collaborate on, and we build those partnerships between the manufacturing employers and the colleges and universities and really offer that as the strength.
The other thing I'd just offer too, so one of the things that's been a kind of a blessing and a curse has been the diversity of industries that we have here. So no sort of one big, which makes us struggle with our identity in terms of how do you sell and attract it, but also isn't as susceptible to economy. And I use Elkhart maybe on a small scale as an example. So when they're so heavily invested in the RV industry that when gas prices go to $3 an hour, unemployment goes to 20%, and people don't have any other options and such. And so we were, St. Joe County, our area was able to balance that a little bit more because of the diversity of industries that we have here. So certainly, in terms of job growth, healthcare has been the biggest. Healthcare and higher ed are the two most rapidly growing areas. Certainly having medical school here, the desire to do more medical research and such, I think will continue to help drive that. Regina mentioned the manufacturing piece. The logistics piece is one where we see it really, see some focus now, primarily because Michigan's a peninsula, and so everything has to come through here to get around the lake, if you will. And so we've seen a tremendous amount of job growth in that in recent years and stuff too. But it's a really interesting balance because we very blue collar manufacturing focused and want maybe more of a balance there where we have a little more white collar, blue collar max. And actually our manufacturing jobs have become very much more high tech engineering related. So.
Yeah, I think we have one of the highest per capita amount of robots in industry, which who would think that about anywhere in Indiana, let alone Elkhart County, which is where the densest area is. But I'll put a quick plug for Idea Week. So the Idea Center here at Notre Dame is partnering with the community, and at the third week of April, there's going to be tons of programming, both social but also heavily focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. And one of the days is going to be in Elkhart, where the CEO of Zappos is going to be speaking, and they're going to be having demos of the robotics, so showing what the high tech, so they're known as kind of the RV capital of the world, but what does that mean today? It's high tech, innovative robotics in the factories of the future, and so that's kind of exciting. So hopefully you've heard about that, but if not, we hope you participate in some of the community events as well.
Does the chamber have any ability to affect the under K through 12 education center? I find that it's hard to attract employers if they don't feel comfortable sending their children to the local schools. So it kind of goes hand in hand to attracting business to the area. Is the chamber got an education focus or liaison?
So great question. We historically have recognized that the K through 12 system has been one of the biggest limiting factors here, and not by anybody's fault. We did, some of the same challenges that urban districts across the country have had, and so we've worked really hard to find candidates, endorse candidates, support candidates for school boards. We have an education advisory council that sort of works with them. We fund things like the superintendent search to make sure they, get the top quality leader. We know that's got to get fixed, and so we spend. We have a full-time person really who spends most of their time on K-12 issues for that reason. We have 5 school systems here, one that's really good and one that's really bad, and 3 that are sort of in the middle and trying to sort of raise all of them up to that standard. But it's sort of this.
I'm new in town. Which one's the good one?
So Penn-Harris Madison is probably the one with the reputation, and that's sort of northeast part of St. Joseph County. It's where years ago everybody moved out of the city and moved out to the suburbs, and it doesn't have some of the same challenges that maybe the urban districts. Yeah, Granger area. Yeah. So and they do a phenomenal job there. We're really encouraged by what's happening in South Bend though, and they're right sizing right now. They're down. They used to have 25,000 students. They have 18,000 students now, so they're closing some schools and such. But that we think it's right sizing. My daughter's a product of South Bend schools, and we've had great success, working in there. But it's part of this overall community piece, and that, you know, and that, I think that's what's really interesting about this is when we put our charts together, and it's like we need K through 12, and we need neighborhood association, we need economic development officials, and we need business, and we need nonprofit, and it really takes really the whole community. That's one of the most important ones, and when we, you know, so we both play in the economic development space. When somebody considers an area, you know, the ninth most popular thing they ask for is about incentives and such. They care about cost of living and such, but usually number one question is about education, workforce, those kind of things. And we sort of go through those other 8 criteria before we even get to the cost stuff sometimes that we know as a community that we have to address and put in place. So.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, on the regional perspective, we're sharing best practices a lot more than having all of these siloed school districts than we ever have before. Over the last year and a half, we've put together a comprehensive strategy that focuses on 5 areas. So we've talked a lot about entrepreneurship's one of those, industry growth, that's one of those. But education and workforce is a complete pillar. So we have a committee that's solely focused on trying to increase the benefits of our public school situation. It's unique here too because we have a heavy amount of Catholic schools in the region. So it's not just charter schools or private schools. I think our region's unique in the different opportunities that the public versus private schools face. But then another one is diversity and inclusion. So making sure that everybody's sitting around the table and having the same economic impacts. But I just think it's important that one of the 5 is totally referring to education and workforce. Mm-hmm.
One more question, anything? All right, well,
Thank
I
you.
will, on behalf of my colleagues at Notre Dame, thank you for taking the time to talk about this.